they will say it was not 9/11, it was not the subprime crisis. It was the merger of globalization and the IT revolution at a whole new scale. The world's gone from connected to hyper-connected. And therefore, you don't just fall behind when you lose a year or two. You don't just fall behind arithmetically. You can fall behind exponentially. And when the world goes from connected to hyper-connected, governance really matters. Now, I would be the last person coming from Washington, D.C., to be lecturing any other democracy about governance. I've seen my own Congress shut down our government. Our Congress today is a forum for legalized bribery. Okay, we have a huge problem as a big pluralistic democracy. And I think some of the challenges India faces are very similar. And I think that it's going to take a lot of fresh thinking how to overcome them, because you have big challenges, we have big challenges. And the only way to face big challenges, the only way to do big, hard things is to do them together. And if you can't do things together, you end up with suboptimal solutions cobbled together at midnight with no due diligence. And when you attack every major problem you face with suboptimal solutions thrown together at midnight with no due diligence, you do that over time, you start to fall behind. I say that as an American. If there's an allegory for India, I'll leave it to you.
But I've read in many of your columns, you're saying, there's still this question, where is democracy leading all of these countries? I mean, look at what China is doing. Isn't it so wonderful to be autocratic? Mm-hmm. You still hold that democracy at the end of the day is going to triumph? And India is going to prove that?
Yeah, I still believe in India's enormous human talent. I mean, what happened is the world just didn't go from connected to hyper-connected. It's gone from interconnected to interdependent. It's a difference of degree that's a difference in kind. And one of India's enormous strengths, it seems to me, is its ability to manage pluralism. It's noisy, it's messy, on the edges it can be violent at times, but this is a country of 1.05 billion people coming from speaking 100 different languages that holds free and fair elections on a regular basis, and where the votes are counted and not the ballots, not the bullets. And imagine for 1 second that India looked like Syria today. The very world we live in, not the neighborhood, the very world we live in would be different. And I believe in an interconnected world, in an interdependent world, India's pluralism and its ability to manage its pluralism is a huge asset, not only for India, but for the world. But all those things are true, and they're all in the future. At the end of the day, though, governance matters. You've got to get the governance right.
Okay, so governance, another thing I do want to talk about. But can I just come back to the three of you on the change of the plumbing of the world economic system? Because what Tom is therefore arguing is that something basic has happened now. And that basic change that has happened means that India is on a different trajectory, and 1 or 2 years of slow growth is not going to change that. Would you agree with that, Jeremy?
I'd agree with that for two reasons. For everyone here who's got kids, what you want if the world's going hyper-connected and IT plumbed, you want a growing body of young people who are going to embrace new technology. And the one big economy of the world that's got that in spades is India. You've got 12.8 million young people joining the job market every year, and those are going to be the people who get IT. The old guys like us, we're a bit slow to pick it up. Those kind of people pick it up incredibly quickly. So I think that is absolutely important. And you also want to have a 57% of your population in service industries. The same amount of people in service industries in India as in America. I find that statistic amazing. If we are going to IT plumbing, that's the kind of background you want. So I'm very optimistic.
Vikram, just say one thing, and I've said this before here, so pardon me if people have heard it, but when I sat down to write The World is Flat in 2004, Facebook didn't exist. Twitter was still a sound. The cloud was still in the sky. 4G was a parking place. LinkedIn was a prison. Applications were what you sent to college. Big data was a rap star, and Skype was a typo. Okay? All of that changed in just the last 7 years. All right? So I know something about the world going from connected to hyper-connected because I watched it before my eyes.
All right. So as one of the people who's been doing that plumbing, if you like, and connecting everything, Has something changed? Because this is important. We're looking at the outlook for India. What we are just hearing is something has changed, and it's an inflection point. So don't get too pessimistic on India too soon, because something has happened which cannot be reversed. Sunil?
No, absolutely. I mean, there's no question. If you look at the power of technology, it has been on full display in India. We have a connected India, 800 to 900 million people who are on mobile phones in one form or the other, connected to the world, increasingly getting onto broadband now. So it has its huge benefits in terms of disintermediation of many businesses, therefore some disruptions, but it's empowering people, it's getting people more informed, it's providing product and services at a fraction of cost that the physical infrastructure will do. So to my mind, and in fact, sometimes you get less celebrated. My own view is the technology world, the telecom world, and the internet world have actually served the nation in a fantastic manner in the last 10 odd years.
All right. Nikesh, the flip side of that, I guess, would be that as the world gets more and more connected, competition also goes up. You're talking about India being able to do a lot of these things, but they are the frontier markets now. And then there's going to be Africa. There's a number of other places where talent can be found, and where if India doesn't get its act together, especially in the question of infrastructure and governance, it may still miss the bus.
Well, I don't think so. I think it goes back to what the finance minister was saying earlier, is that, if you get India connected right, which Sunil is referring to, and we're seeing a lot of improvement in the last few years, you will see the emergence of the small, medium-sized businesses. You finally take away the barriers for them to grow. So, you get a very large information, communication, and distribution network at your behest, where the friction is very, very low. And if that begins to happen, you will see a lot of grassroots movement as small businesses are concerned. You'll see grassroots movement on the social front. And a lot of the politics, a lot of the governance is going to change. And it's going to change because the young people are going to take the technology and start using technology in a more aggressive way. Why do I have to wait for 5 years to find out how my member of parliament did in parliament when I can vote every day and tell them what I think? Now, yeah, you don't want people voting every day, because then you have nothing, you're constantly trying to second guess yourself. At the same time, you don't want to wait for 5 years. So we're going to have to find a new balance in the new world, with everybody being hyper-connected, with all these wonderful things that Tom said so eloquently. But things will change. And competition, I think India is a very, very large market in itself. If India, which it has most of its act together, we'll see competitors coming out of India with 1 billion people to serve, much faster than you can in smaller markets around the world. But yes, do we need to move things faster? Has the pace of innovation changed? It has. Does that mean we have to change our pace in terms of how we get stuff done? Yes.
All right, so we've heard some of the good news, especially when it comes to the long-term potential, but let me just come back then to the immediate problems, and two broad areas, and we've touched on many of them. Infrastructure continues to be a problem, and governance. And in infrastructure, I have to say it's increasingly becoming slightly patchy. I just had the chance to see the new terminal in Mumbai, and the new airport terminal in Mumbai, and the new airport terminal in Delhi. They're as good as anything you would see in Europe or in America. And you step just outside that and you'll have roads which would be, which are awful. So it's a bit patchy in infrastructure. And governance continues to in many ways be our single big issue, which governments are struggling to deliver.
What's the question?
I'm asking you whether you agree that those are the two problems.
Yes. Let's take governance. Governance in India today is not the monopoly or responsibility of one political party. We have Congress governments in 12 states. We have BJP governments in half a dozen states. The remaining states are ruled by different political parties. So the quality of governance is uneven. Secondly, many of the infrastructure problems have to be addressed at 3 levels of government: the central government, the state government, and the municipal government. Take Delhi. You have a central government of one party, you have a state government of another party, which I don't know if they have unraveled more in the last couple of days. And then you have municipal governments, or 3 municipal governments by a third party. So there will always be difficulties in implementing infrastructure projects in India. We'll have to find a model by which infrastructure projects can be insulated from political influences, and they can be implemented by, say, an SPV or any other arrangement which just gets the job done. If we can build a Delhi metro, if we can build a Mumbai airport, which is as good as any in the world, why can't we make roads which are as good as any in the world. So that's the issue about governance and infrastructure. They are related, but I think things will get better as people demand better governance. I agree with what he said. People will demand better and better governance, more and more accountability, and governments will be pushed to deliver on the ground.
So this is another theory, by the way, talking about the different levels of India. This is another theory that is being increasingly spoken about. Look at India increasingly. It is a federation of states, and different states are going to be in competition, and that's where you're going to start finding a lot of action. Is that what anybody here at Davos looking at India should increasingly start doing? Look at India, but also look at individual states and what's happening there. Sudhir?
No, absolutely. I think many of us are working very closely with states, especially those who have single large
And
projects.
is there a big difference between states?
There is, absolutely. My God, there is. There are states which are very alive to the needs. I was in Punjab just about 3 weeks back. They've come out of the new industrial policy. My own view is I've never seen anything like this in my life before. For the first time, they've dispensed with almost all the certification that you needed to start an industry. You can self-certify, no need to have anything notarized anymore. There are tax reliefs which are being given. Punjab, to my mind, will start picking up. If this remains as the model for the rest of the country, other states will soon follow. Gujarat has been talked about many times. Maharashtra has been attracting a lot of industry. My own view is states are competing, and that's good for the country.
Is that something which you keep an eye on also when you're looking at India? Pick the state as much as anything else?
I think increasingly, I think a bit of competition is a good thing. And competition between different governmental areas is as good as competition. I work in an industry which is incredibly competitive, and I think that's healthy. So, yeah, anything that can make some of the bureaucracy that is an issue, and it's an issue in many countries, not just India, be refined, go away. I don't believe in light regulation. I believe in a good, sensible dose of regulation, particularly in the financial